So I want to present Elisa Iannacone, who's doing really important work for working with young children who are going through a lot of pain in Ukraine. And I want to thank our sponsors again, which is Pro Photo Daily, B&H, Epson, American Photography, and of course Pro Photo Daily. Also, a shout out to Jay, who navigates all this and deals with everyone's late delays and corrections and on and on and on. So Jay, thank you for everything you do to make this all run smoothly. So with that, here's Elisa Iannacone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for having me on again to give you a little bit of an update of what's been going on in Ukraine with me.
Please.
Uh, I wanted to talk a little bit today about a project called Hope in the Rubble, and basically what that is a project where I speak to children with art therapists and also with their parents to try and understand how the war has affected them, what their dreams are, what their hopes are, their aspirations, their fears. And then after making some drawings, we collaborate to come up with an idea as to how we want to tell their story amongst the destroyed areas. So I
With the
literally,
children.
sorry, with the children. Yes,
Right. So
exactly.
it's all collaboration. Okay.
It's all collaboration, exactly. And it's still using, if you remember this from last time, I do a lot of magical
Yes,
realism to
of
tell
course.
stories of trauma. So in this instance, this was definitely the hardest project I've ever tried to put together because taking sets and huge costumes and props to bombed out areas and traveling to Ukraine with like 332-kilo suitcases plus gear plus lights by myself to take trains from Poland to have delayed flights to take them to these areas. I came
That's a
back
project
very
by itself.
strong.
That's a project in itself.
I came back very strong, but I'll just share my screen and give
Okay.
a little bit of backstory of how this actually came to be.
Please.
So I'm starting with a project called Dreams of Childhood. I don't know, can you actually see my screen now?
I can, but I see your whole doc.
You see my, okay, is that better?
Now I see it, the whole just the
Perfect.
screen. Great.
So this is Dreams of Childhood. This is a project I did during an art residency in Johannesburg, and I worked with the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital to translate where children's imagination went when they were stuck in hospitals. And so it was just about transforming the spaces that are generally quite, quite sad and quite frustrating, I would say, when you're stuck without your health, and just trying to make a point of the dreams that children had despite the hardship. And so I would say
Mm.
that this was the kernel that led to eventually creating the project I have today. You've seen this project before, and it's just, children that dream of going to far off countries on balloons or going to the Met Gala because they want to be a designer and they want a huge pink dress or eating all the cakes in the world. Unfortunately, like, most countries that, don't have a lot of resources, most of these children will unfortunately pass away. This child, for example, passed away last year, and she wanted to eat all the cakes in the world, and she couldn't. And, here we are. These photos are now in the hospital and with the families, and the whole objective was to kind of honor the children, but also preserve them in a moment of joy and preserve their dreams and their hopes so that the memory isn't all dark and dire and bleak. And
Mm.
so I ended up going to Ukraine on one trip and doing the same thing there. And of course, when you have topics of war, what emerges is there are darker thematics. And believe it or not, this young girl was only 3 years old. She's
Mm.
very tiny. She obviously didn't speak English. I don't speak Ukrainian, so we had her mother translating. And it was all a bit a process of kind of understanding how much of the war was actually within her grasp, within her understanding. And so this creature to the left of her is called Sirena Galova in Ukraine, and it's this monster that effectively has sirens for ears, and she was associating it with the air raid sirens, which go off all the time. And she said she was just really scared of this monster, and she had to explain to me what it was and where it came from, and she actually showed me photos online, and they're quite, scary, but she was perfectly attuned to the fact that she knew that when these air raid sirens happened, they either had to go to a bunker or there were going to be some loud noises or, and she was scared of it. And so the whole point of this image was that she wanted to confront that monster and wanted to give them a letter, which is what she's holding in her right hand. In order to be able to confront the monster, she needed multiple magic wands, which is what we attempted to do with those lights in the background. And she wanted flowers and she wanted a pink dress. And when she first came out, we built this monster with because obviously I didn't know when I went what the children were going to dream of. It's a walking machine. And it's a walking machine that's just decorated with some fabric and rope that was already at the hospital. And things and she decided to actually write a letter to this monster. And inside of that letter, it says, "Dear Sirena Galova, Superman will beat you." And we had to come out with her mother at first to just confront the monster, understand that, it's not a real monster. We've built it ourselves based on what she described. We'd had drawings before. But it was I thought, an epic moment for a child of that age to
Mm,
confront one of her biggest fears and say, you know what, you're not going to win. And what she's actually saying to me is, whatever is happening right now, like, children are resilient, they are driven, they have hopes and aspirations that are not going to get destroyed because of this. And it's just about that kind of perseverance of being able to kind of stand your ground despite what's happening, even if you're 3 years old.
right.
And so I got really inspired to go back.
All right, so wait a second. So, all right, so you have the idea. How do you go about convincing the kid, the mother, the hospital, the logistics around it? Because that's real. I mean, that's the unbelievable challenge. You're in a war-torn world here, and we're in Disneyland at the same time. How do you,
Yeah,
how do
I
you,
mean,
how do you sell the idea, the concept, and who do you need to get to, to buy into this?
I was lucky in the sense that I lived in Ukraine in 2019, so I had a lot of friends and people that I knew there already. And it was just about reaching out to hospitals, children's hospitals, which
Mm,
actually felt really weird when the children's hospitals, were bombed, where I was like, we're working there, we're doing these things, the kids need, like, how could this happen? Anyways, and it's, speaking to the hospital directors, pitching my work, and just, in this instance, it was showing up, calling a friend that actually knew, this particular hospital, navigating and going like, look, this is the idea. This is the work that I do, taking one of my old books, presenting some of the old work, and really
right,
showcasing what the objective is. Because unlike the previous work that I used to focus on exclusively, which was pure photojournalism, where you're just witnessing the horrors, and oftentimes you're putting someone's worst moment of trauma in the cover of a magazine or on film or something. And there was something about that that just was rubbing me the wrong way, because I wanted collaboration and I wanted the people that I was photographing to not be people that I never spoke to again. I wanted them to become friends, and I wanted them to kind of have something that I gave them as well. And I feel like this is, in a way, something I can offer is, let's tell your story in a way that we collaborate with creativity, that we have a pocket of solace amongst this madness. And by pitching it that way, I find that people are very open because they're craving a moment of respite. Particularly the parents, I think if there is a chance to offer their children a moment of respite, plus also basing this on art therapy principles, not that I'm at all an art therapist, but um, in this instance, in this particular image, I worked with obviously the hospital staff who selected children that they thought would be adequate for this particular project, introduced me to the parents, had a conversation with them, and then go through the hospital to find locations that we can actually shoot in, that are going to be viable. Because the lessons that I learned in South Africa, which doesn't always happen, is that, the image with the girl with the cakes was actually a neonatal passageway, an emergency neonatal passageway. And I just saw a green wall. She liked green. I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do it here? And they're like, yeah, yeah, no problem. And then in the middle of the shoot, we just had these paramedics rushing through with a neonatal baby and kind of a little, thing. And I was like, what's going on? They're like, oh, it's a passageway. So it's about speaking to the hospital, making sure that we're going to be in a good location that's not going to bother them. Um, Trying to figure out what props are needed, trying to figure out, are there things in the hospital that we can take? What do I need to bring in? Then going away and figuring out costumes, figuring out. Now, this particular image, I interviewed the girl one day, we shot the next day. No, actually, it was,
and what are you
yeah,
shooting with? What are you shooting with?
an R5C. So I'm shooting on a Canon hybrid camera, and that's for the purposes of shooting hybrid because I also do a bit of filming. And then I'll take Profoto lights. So I'll generally have one or two Profoto lights and then just find obviously ways that we can also light. Like, for example, the light that comes from behind the door was already from the hospital because we're shooting in quite a dark place. So I
Mm,
try to find, how can we make use of the lights that are already there, practical lights, like in this case, the magic wands, things like that. And it's just persuasion, and also quite honestly, just saying, this is what it's about. And if they don't want to, which still hasn't happened, but if they don't want to, they're more than welcome to not participate, right? That's not, I'm not forcing anyone, and I want people that actually feel they'd get something out of it.
mm,
And in this instance, it was about, her confronting a fear. And
right.
I'll just run
And
you
what is her
through
what
kind
is
of,
her what is this child no, no, you can go to the next one. Um you know
no, no,
what
oh, okay.
yeah, what is the level of collaboration? You know, how deeply are you in
Huge. It's
they must love that, the kid.
no, I mean, all the interviews are journalistic, so it's a journalistic interview. That once I started this project, so this photo is the first one from the actual Hope in the Rubble project, was conducted with an art therapist and translators, and knowing that the parents were somewhere near the child. And it's about just asking questions. What's war? What is peace? How do you feel about these things? What are your dreams? What are your fears? Um, what color would you assign to war? What color would you assign to peace? And it's coming out. So in this particular instance, she was talking about all the time that she has to spend in a bunker
Mm,
and how she wishes that she could have a protector bear. So this one's called Protector Bear, because the bear would have to be huge to take care of her, but he would have to be there always. Everywhere she goes, she wants to have Protector Bear. And I mean, I think I conduct journalistic interviews, but invariably there'll be a moment where a child will say a word or a phrase or something that just triggers my imagination. And I just go, what do you think about doing something with a protector bear? And then comes the challenge of how am I going to get a huge bear in Ukraine? How am I going to get these costumes there? How am I going to transport them? Can I find them there? Do I need to bring them from London, which is where I was based at the time? And it's all of that thought process. Can I buy flowers, there locally? What do I need to bring artificial ones? Like and it's just collaborating with the child and saying like, okay, what about the costume? Like, what would you like to wear? It's like, oh, I really like green. I'd like a big green dress, like these kinds of things. And there are things that emerge that you cannot control to the end, In this particular instance, she brought Converse shoes, which I just absolutely loved because she's going to wear this dress. And I said, just bring comfortable shoes because obviously we're going to be in the rubble. You're wearing this dress, just whatever. And she shows up with these Converse shoes, which in my mind I would have been like, no, I was going to put these. And I just went, that's so perfect because it's just childhood. And I just felt it was fun. And I was like, show me your shoes. But she's also quite, what I like about these photos is I don't really direct expression in the children. I let them bring what they're feeling to the party, let's just say, to the pachanga. And, in her instance, I feel like she was really in this image, she really communicates like there's a harrowing war going on here, and yeah, I can show you my conference, and yeah, I can have a protector bear, but this is tough. And I think that's the point of them. Like a lot of these images, and oftentimes my work gets confused for fashion. Right? People say, oh, it's like a beautiful image or it's a fashion image. And the thing is, I love that look. I love that style. I love texture and color and patterns and props and design. But I also, my heart is in human rights and my heart is in kind of more a humanistic approach to how we tell these kinds of stories. And so I just had to mix the worlds. And I made a partnership with the Kiev National Ballet as well. And you're asking what you have to do. I had to do that in advance to say, I'm gonna need some props. Uh, what do you say? I'm gonna
right.
try to do this project. And they said yes. They literally, there was nothing like arriving in Kiev and going into the National Ballet and just entering the prop house and them just going, anything you want. They didn't charge me a dime, right? Just because of the kind
Mm,
of project that it was. And they just went, anything you want. And so I took from London most of those photos, but the two big red ones at the bottom, which are made of paper, are from the Kiev National Ballet.
mm,
And, throughout the images, you'll see. And this picture was of a girl that loves to paint, and she just wishes she could paint away the war. And luckily, again, it's about location scouting, which we did on the day, right? Because this is the way that sometimes these things go.
yeah.
We found this
Yeah.
area that just had this green grass, and that destroyed building in the background. And I was like, that's a great juxtaposition of life and, what was once there. And we just shot.
So, so from the original conversation to when we're actually shooting, how much time is that?
For this project, it was a few weeks, simply because I needed to get all the ideas to the shooting point, like all the concepts to shooting point. And sometimes it takes a moment. Sometimes, somebody says they're a painter and they like painting flowers and whatever. You're going, okay, am I dressing her as a painter? Are we making an easel? Are we doing this? You're chatting to them, being like, what do you think of this? And then once you come up with the idea of like, okay, we want to like paint away the war, you're hoping to God that you find a location that works, right? Once you're there. And then it's about, okay, I got to make these paintbrushes. How am I going to make paintbrushes that are kind of bleeding color? It's about every prop, just think, I need huge flowers, buying them, shipping them, and then figuring out the logistics of how much I'm going to take there. So it can happen quite quickly, um, considering the amount of work, but you still need a little bit of time.
Right. And during that period where you define you're figuring out the paintbrushes and the flowers and all these things, are we in constant communication with the kid?
So in the case of kid constant communication with their parents, so I have a WhatsApp group with the parents and the art therapist that I was working with, and even now I update them like whenever I mentioned to you, one of these photos got into an award series, and I update them and I say, look, these photos, this has happened, this is where this project is going. So I'm in communication with them, whenever things happen, and just to check in like how everyone is doing. So yeah, absolutely. And of course, when I was going, I had to coordinate a lot with the parents to be like, when are the children available? Are they all available when I'm going to be there? I need two children in a day. We need to go to these areas, It's and what the hardship of this project as well was that every single night we had bombings. And during the day we had air raid sirens. And the question was also like, oh, this is just while I'm talking, I'll run you through
Right.
the behind the scene, kind of the prep of putting one together. So of course, in the top left corner there, you can see that woman with a
Yes.
violin, which was in the Protector Bear one.
Yes, we saw
I
that.
had to kind of find locations where I could do two shoots in a day. So you look one way and you can shoot one person, then you look the other and you can shoot another. So the one that I'm putting together there with this amazing man who was actually a commander in the military, who was in the front line for many years. I had hired his daughter to be my translator, and he just decided to come out for kicks to see what his daughter was up to. He ended up being the most incredible human to work with. He didn't speak an ounce of English. I could not say anything in Ukrainian, but he knew. Like the moment I looked at him, he just knew what I was up to, and he
He
was
was fully
instrumental.
engaged.
He was so engaged, and he knew, like, once he clocked what it was about, he was like, I'm in. He ended up like taking time off to come out like several days for these shoots. And you'll see in one of the photos, he even made it into one of the photos. But yeah, and here we're
Wait, that painting on the wall, is that a Bansky?
no, so what really funny is in a previous trip that I'd gone to, I had taken a picture in this area where a Banksy appeared very few days after.
Ah,
And that
okay.
is actually a local violinist that people graffitied in different parts. Like you will see that particular woman in different parts, who's a local violinist who's been kind of painted on walls in different parts. But I do notice that she appeared after the Banksy appeared. So it's almost like, following in the style.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyways, here we're putting together a paper boat, or what will look as a paper boat, because a child used to make paper boats with his father before he went to the front line. And unfortunately, the father returned with some PTSD, so the parents were no longer together. And he just kind of wanted to remember the days where he felt most at peace with his dad, making paper boats and playing with them. And so this is how, I would work first to get the children after, right? So kind of building the props, getting the frame right, etc. And then eventually bringing the kids in. And in this particular instance, the child wanted to bring his sister, who was the girl in Protector Bear. So I worked with both children. So she's in the boat, and then his dog. So the dog nearly destroyed the boat. We almost died, but somehow
Oh,
he couldn't make it into the boat. But because we tried to put him in the boat first, and seriously, we almost lost the boat. So that was the best we could do. And the girl, you can't really see it too clearly, I don't think, online, but the girl is holding in her hand a praying mantis because they have a praying mantis, and he wanted that to also be in the image. Like, and you know, it's interesting because with these images, initially he wanted his mom and dad on the boat, and he said, I am not going to do this image unless we can have my mom and dad on this boat, right? And I remember the art therapist making some suggestions like, you know, we could have a picture of your mom and dad or whatever. And I inquired, you know, would this ever be possible? They said absolutely not. So it was about, you know, and then I just opened up with it,
Which part was not possible? Having the parents on?
having the parents together on the
Oh, okay, right,
boat.
okay.
Yeah. So I just had to chat to him and just kind of basically just open up and commiserate and say, you know, sometimes I've experienced hardship with my parents and, you know, they've had a challenging marriage and sometimes, you know, they hurt each other if they're together and just kind of chatting at that level of just saying,
Yeah.
I understand what you want. Sometimes this is not possible. And then eventually the boy just said, you know what, let's just do it. Right. And it was great. So you say, how long does it take? That took a few calls to kind of get to the point where it's like, could we do this? No. Could we do that? He was like, no. Mom and dad, mom and dad. And just trying different ways to go, well, what if I just, you know, share with you how I feel about, you know, my parents and you know, it worked and it might have not. And if it didn't, we wouldn't have done it. But
It's
they were,
therapy, right? Therapy for
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So anyways, that's a little bit of the behind the scenes, like
great. It's
immediately
great to
after the
see
shoot.
that. Really great to see that.
But it's not glamorous.
Anyone watching this knows that photography is not glamorous.
It's not particularly glamorous, and you know, you're just doing your thing, like backing up stuff wherever you can, and then just having fun, you know, a little bit sometimes. It's like, you know, like just I love that the kids just naturally started playing with the bear once we put it down. We've got some great photos with the kids and the bear, and yeah, anyways. So moving on to this. So for example, challenges on this one were the main one. As you can see, we have smoke here. Um, in a war zone, maybe not the best idea. So and this was actually, you know, me kind of chatting to this commander and just saying, look, this is the drawing of the idea that we've got. It's a young woman that feels like she is at war in terms of having to defend her home, which is, you know, being burnt down, her castle, which is like we made a little castle in the on the stage that she has to defend, and also feeling like she is on stage performing, where, you know, all these things are going on, and somehow she still has to go to school and have dinner and be with her family and almost pretend like nothing is wrong, right?
Mm.
And so, you know, I thought to myself, okay, and she initially wanted everything on fire. I was like, okay, I might struggle with that. We could have, because I've worked with smoke bombs many times, but I was like, I don't know if this is going to be possible because the environment that we're in, somebody might think that something's going off, right? But I was with a commander and, you know, we had these smoke bombs that I got in Ukraine and he went, yeah, you know what? How many do you want? And he just started opening them all up. He's even in when I was taking this photo, he's even walking in the background in several shots just with the, you know, putting off smoke bombs.
Yeah, wait. So wait a second. You just mentioned it like in passing. Where did you get smoke bombs?
Yeah, I ordered them while I was in London from a smoke bomb shop in Kiev, and I got them to send them to the hotel that I was going to stay at. I mean, it's amazing the kind of stuff you can get
It's
still, you know,
great.
in these
No,
places. And yeah, I mean, and the fact, you know, these lions, for example, at the bite at the bottom, I found them in the rubble. I found them like just around, same with that door. So I just kind of found a mountain of rubble and then I found these lions and I brought them to the little mountain of rubble and then I collected pieces of wood where I could build a stage with that so I put them on top of the kind of little mountain of rubble and then I put the lions and I found that door which happened to be red, which I was like, this looks amazing. Let's just put it there like it's a part of the stage. And so, you know, I brought in the curtains, I brought in the dress, I brought in the flowers and the you know, but I have no idea what I'm gonna find in the moment. I just thought finding these lines was so it felt magical to me because it's like you're
it
in the
has to
middle of
be.
a bombed out area. There is nothing. And then suddenly you find these lions there and you question, what was this? You know, was there like a children's ride or like
I,
what, you know, what
I,
was happening?
I tell you, if this photography thing doesn't work out for you, producing does. For sure, my God.
Yeah, the producing strategy. If we ain't got it, we'll find it.
Right? That's it. That's
Um,
exactly it.
So
You,
yeah, and I mean, it's obviously the idea of like she's wearing because she brought heels. I said to everyone, bring comfortable shoes, whatever. She's like, I'm bringing heels. I have to put her on this thing with heels. We're getting her up there, and the kids get quite involved. Like, she was helping putting up the little castle in the background, and she wanted to help with things. And I've found this throughout my career with this particular type of shooting, where people get asked as most or as little involved as they want, like as much or as little. And I find that when they really do, like they're processing something, they're really thinking about it. Some people have made their own costumes, some people have helped with a prop setting, and I really feel like there's a process happening. And that's the principle of expressing trauma through art and also presenting art as a form of justice. I find when you find no justice, right? When justice is not coming your way, it's a way of being seen, it's a way of being witnessed, it's a way of sharing your story in a way that you feel is right, as opposed to the way it landed up in the media.
yeah.
So I quite, yeah, this is why I like working this way. Oh, the kids give me every shoot, every single shoot, they gave me stuff. And it was the most crazy thing because you're like, don't worry about that, They made me drawings, they gave me bracelets, they gave me flowers, and it was just, I felt so moved because I kind of went, no, you are going through hell right now. You don't worry about that. You know what I mean? And still they want to give, right? Um,
Decency has a way of pervading everything. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah, completely. And I think that's the thing about working with children as well, is like it's not just innocence, it's viewing the world with potential and thinking of what could be versus what is and what you want it to be because your entire life is ahead of you. And I think that viewing it through that lens is just really beautiful and powerful. Um, yeah.
You, you mentioned through that lens, and I had a question that I was going to ask you later, but I'll ask it to you now. Becoming a parent yourself and doing this project, how does that, weave itself into your psyche?
Yeah, I mean, this project has expanded. So I started in Ukraine. I've done it in Syria. I want to keep it going in DRC and just kind of paint a global palette of what we're doing to the youth of the world.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I mean, I think. It's painful because obviously I'm trying my best to, as any parent, I would think, try to give the best to your child, try to allow them to have a better life than you had, perhaps, and just trying to put that together. But I just think of all the people that are currently trying to parent in a situation where they don't even know if they're going to be alive, the next
yeah.
day or something. It's unbelievable that we are doing this to people.
Yeah.
It's like we are humans against humans. And, for example, the images that are coming out of Gaza right now and what's happening there, I just go,
I mean, that was my next question. I would assume you're gonna find your way there in
probably
some,
eventually, the way this is going.
but it's an interesting thing in that, like, so here you are in Ukraine, or you'll go to Gaza, or you'll go to Syria, wherever you go, is it your responsibility to go to Russia, to go into Israel, to see the other side of it? I mean, because this lends itself to the greatness that you're achieving. But what's going on with the Russian kid? What's going on
And
with the kid in Tel Aviv,
yeah,
right? With their mom
no,
or dad going off to war. You know,
yes.
I don't know if
No,
you've
and I
thought that
actually
through.
thought about this at war. There was a moment where I started Googling just countries at war when I was thinking, okay, how do I select countries to go to? And one of the number one countries to come up is the US, which obviously you don't think about because you don't
Right.
view the country as like you're at war at home, but you are, in many different places. So I just kind of started thinking, okay, yes, that side I think would be really interesting and also really valid, to showcase precisely what it feels like to be on the other side of the coin. And I mean, I've been to Israel, I've been to Russia, I've been to these countries, and I think at the moment what it was is I'm trying to make a global statement of what is happening to childhood when you are in these
Right.
conflicts and in these areas. And I felt that if I started to, because obviously these projects take time, right? If I started to also go, okay, I'm going to do both sides. So I'm going to go to Russia next. I'm going to do this. I felt like I was starting to dilute the message that I wanted to present, like right
Mhm.
off the bat for this
Yeah, yeah.
particular moment. That's not to say that I wouldn't do it after, because I have given it a lot of thought. And I think, especially children growing up, say, for example, in Israel right now, um, there will be kids that probably question like what is happening. There are tons of protests within Israel of people that don't want this to go ahead. And it's being confronted with, well, we are now the perpetrator of these, these crimes, these things, and I can't stop it from happening. And I might be a part of the machine. I might have to go to war. I might have to do these things. I mean, I think there's people that firmly believe that what they're doing is right. And I think that there are people that just are caught up in the machine in the same way that in World War II, not every single person that was a Nazi believed what they were doing, but they kind of felt like they had to because otherwise they could be killed. People who protested had their families have problems, things. So I think war and these kinds of conflict, it's just so complicated, right? It's not
Yep.
something
But
that you
but
can.
yeah, it's an interesting thing, where the question really screams, what is your responsibility in that, right?
Hmm.
To show it, whichever way you show, without getting into a heavy political conversation. But as an artist, there's a piece where you know, there's another side to the coin, right? That poor kid in Iran, right? Is what's going on? All the kids have something else, on a
Yeah,
different level than the parents, of course, and adults. But like, what are they feeling running to shelters? It's really compelling.
absolutely. I mean, the only thing I can say to that is one of the projects that I started with this methodology was on sexual violence, which you know.
Mm,
Um, and once I completed that project, which took about 8 years to put together, working with rape survivors and expressing how everyone felt after the assault, I decided that I wanted to try see what happened to people that had committed abuse and violence. And I ended up going into UK prisons. I partnered with the Ministry of Justice. I actually got to spend quite a bit of time speaking to people that had either committed domestic violence or in the sexual assault or sexual violence wards in prison, which I didn't even know had its own section. And what I was confronted with was, what you're kind of going for when you're looking for the other side of the coin, or at least what I felt I was going for was trying to find trying to find empathy, or trying to find kind of the parameters that led someone to doing this, and
mm,
seeing some kind of remorse was, I think, what I was seeking. Having also been a sexual violence survivor, I was seeking understanding what led someone to violence, and understanding also the parameters that led them there. Often what I found, and when I started to do this methodology with certain people, was either people that had gone through therapy that said it wasn't me, it was the anger. It wasn't me, it was, and when we come up with images, they would say things like, well, a puppeteer, like it wasn't me, I was puppeted by the
mm.
anger or by the things. And I felt like there was a lack of accountability that I was hearing, and it didn't inspire me to create a platform for that voice because I felt it would be unfair to the survivors, right? I also heard
Yeah.
stories like people saying like, I would say, why would you have sex with a 9-year-old? Or like, why would you sleep with children? And they say, well, we loved each other. Are you against love? I'm not a psychologist, but I do know that that would take a very long time to peel away those layers and to actually get to a place where I could create, because these images are statements in a way, right? I need to create a statement that I can align with, that I can also believe in. And I just went, this is gonna take years, and I don't know that I want to devote my life to this messaging, right? In that
Mm.
instance. In this project, it's totally different. And I do think
Right.
that there would be huge scope for exploring the other side, and I would want to. I'm just on the first side of the coin at the moment, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. No, it's
Um,
complex.
okay, so anyways, this image, just to show you kind of the outside of the building, and then what we ended up doing on the inside. So just once again, you can see the balloons there of this destroyed building, and then And once again, I mentioned you would see that commander again in the in the project. So to the left, I managed to persuade this wonderful man to be one of my security guards. So this young girl, she's everything Barbie, right? Pink, 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 pink. I want a pink castle. I want a pink dress. I want pink security guards. But the important thing for her is the security guards need to have two huge machine guns to protect me at all times so that I can be safe. Obviously, for obvious, reasons, I wasn't going to put in two machine guns in the middle of these environments. So I extrapolated and I did check with her. And luckily, the Kiev National Ballet had these things. So we used those. And that in the middle is her mother. And I wanted it to be very obvious that we had turned a woman into a man because finding men to come out to a photo shoot was impossible because everyone is being used in the front line. Like everyone of this if of fighting age is basically in the front line, right? Or being used for something. And it just was because this man had some time off and took a few days off from being in the front line and happened to be there that I was like, well, how do you feel about this? You know? And so here he is dressed in pink, and I just think it's the most beautiful thing because it's about people coming together for the dreams of a child. This child wants two security guards. We don't have them. You're a commander in the military. You're tough. You dress in military attire every day that you've been out with us. Do you want to be a pink security guard? And he was like, I'd love to. And the mom
Therapeutic
obviously,
for everybody, my God.
yeah,
How
well,
does
and
how
and
does he how does he go to the front line? So what'd you do for the past 3 days? Oh, I don't know. I was in a pink outfit playing house with this kid. God
I
almighty.
mean, what was really sweet with him is at the end of all the shoots, he gave me his badge from the front line. And I was like, no, 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 don't give me that. Like that's. And he gave it to me and he got his daughter to translate and he said, no, 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 I want you to have it. Working with you is just like military training.
Ah, there you go. Ah,
He's like
great.
lifting, he's moving things, because I mean, it looks pretty straightforward, right? But then you get into these locations and, there are hazards you need to remove. There are props, well, not props, but artifacts in the way that you need to move. You need to, it's heavy duty, you're not like just chilling and calling in makeup, hair and makeup to, fix it. So yeah, it was quite kind of
And
him.
and and how proud she is that she got everybody in that shot. I
I
mean, you,
know,
you
right?
can
It's
see
like,
like I played this trick on everybody and now they're all dressed up. That's great.
yeah, and I mean that costumes from the Kiev National Ballet, the soldier costumes I brought from London, and it's just how do you make that? That's him actually, just when in one of the locations, and you'll see how this location evolves once again. So we find the spot. This day it poured, it rained. It wasn't supposed to be rainy season in Ukraine, but it freaking poured. So it was also about working really quickly. How do we protect the lights, protect the camera, protect the props? Have people that come through that want to take things away, also navigate that environment because it can get a bit rough at times. Can I climb into that building? Of course, health and safety in the UK would say no. The Mexican in me would be like, let's give it a shot. So, and so you start building, putting props in, trying to figure out how that's all going to work. And then
Wow.
you shoot it. And so that's actually my wedding dress. Which I took to Ukraine. It was a gentle shade of lilac. In post, we kind of really brought that color out. But this is a young girl that just wants to go to Paris and see the Paris lights and wear beautiful couture and just forget about where she's at and have that kind of romanticism of what Paris is, right? The music, the lights, the candles,
Yeah.
um, and the chandeliers and I mean that was tough because obviously I wanted all the candles on and it was raining so bad. So this these images are composites in that everything that you see, every prop is real, the candles are real, but because I only travel with two lights, right? And that's for safety purposes as well because you do encounter lots of characters that sometimes want to take equipment away. And there's so many eyes I can have. I light in a composite way. So I will take two lights and I will light her and then I'll light this and then I'll light one candle and then I'll put it all together. And that's how it actually is able to work. My other work, in other countries where I'm not, dealing with this kind of conflict or whatever,
Or,
we have all the lights or whatever, but yeah, it was not reasonable in this way. Also, like, putting flashes inside of the dresses in the background and stuff like that. Like, I would need so many lights. It just wouldn't be reasonable. So yeah, that's kind of this is kind of the project I've been working on. This is a long-term project. I've got
Mhm.
the same thing as this in Syria already, and I want to keep it going, as I mentioned, in DRC, potentially in Mexico, which is where I'm right now, where I'm originally from, to showcase also the angle of, it's not a war as it is understood as bombs falling. It's a drug war, understood as children getting into situations and being forced to commit crimes and do things that they didn't want to do. And that's quite a dicey thing to navigate as well. So it might not work, but anyways, it's a long-term project where I'm happy to spend some time with the topic. Um, and just also showcase, what's happened to some of the young people that go to the front line. This young woman went to the front line. She's now become quite well known. She's worked with Vogue and different people, and she went and she lost her leg just a few days in, and she's now done a lot of work in terms of helping out with an organization in Ukraine called Superhumans, which works with people who are amputees. And it's a
Right.
strange place to go as someone that, hasn't been in that environment as much, because I was the only person in that location that wasn't an amputee. Receptionist is an amputee, everyone. And you just kind of confront yourself with how lucky you are if you have all of your limbs, and how
Mhm.
lucky you are if you have your health, and how challenging it is to go through that process of having a life with something and then losing something so pivotal to you. And that strength of that resilience of going, I'm not going to let this stop me or break me, or, and that's not every story, right? But I really respected hers, that she was able to do that. And, she talks of war. This is called war pigs. And it's because she feels that you're puppeteered into war. You're puppeteered into the front line
How
by
profound, right?
people pulling strings, and you become a war pig. You're disposable. Nobody cares about you. And that's how she feels and how she felt. And it's that defiance of standing strong with your face on, your real face, and saying, no, this is me. I'm not going to let this, turn me into one more. And so I really liked this concept with her.
Right.
um and yeah, I mean, yeah, this is basically what I've been working on. This is a young child that also, or a young teenager that wants to
Be a pilot.
pilot the Maria. This is a very specific Ukrainian airplane that used to be really grand. I think it was one of the largest in the world or the fastest in the world. I can't remember which of the two, but the whole point is that it was put out of commission by the Russians, or so he told me. And he said he wants to become a pilot to bring it back to life. To showcase, the strength that Ukraine has, and the intellectual capacity to create, an airplane of that magnitude. And so it's just,
I,
yeah.
I have to tell you this. I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't bring in a plane, like a real plane. Like, where
You
is
know
it?
what? I actually tried. I
I'm
actually
sure you
tried,
did.
because and you talk about my producing skills, they have limits sometimes. Because I found a place in Ukraine that actually still had the plane, but I mean, it's the concept of, how do you move it from there to this locate? Like, it wasn't
Stop.
very
Don't
reasonable.
even suggest.
It didn't become that easy. It couldn't fly. We couldn't land it. It was
Yeah,
too big. Yeah, but and I did give him the choice. I said, we can either build a plane that is similar, right? It's not going to be identical to that plane, but we can create something that's similar too. Or do you want like an exact identical model? And for him, it was just more important that it was the identical model, because he wanted it to make it amply clear that that is the plane that he is speaking about, and that is the plane that he wanted to show the world, right? So that's the reason that we kind of went that way. And obviously the Kiev National Ballet, once again, giving us their suitcases so that
Um,
so and I mean, again, speaking about composites, as I was talking, that lighting in the background, it's just about going around and lighting. And sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't, but just going around and then
fine.
lighting all the bits, and then afterwards putting them together. And ironically, that one, once I lit it and saw it in post, it was just drawing too much attention away from him, so I kind of killed that light. But it's, you can also kind of light and post when you shoot this way a little bit, because you're not entirely sure um if you're going to use every
Hey,
single thing.
doing it the way you do and the way you're presenting it, giving us a little bit of background, showing us the production piece of it is really valuable as a
Oh,
storyteller because you really get to see how did she do that? How did she pull that together? All of that. Really terrific.
thanks, Frank. And I mean, this is very stressful shoot. I mean, I must say these shoots were stressful, but this one was particularly because so this is actually the child in the blue. It's her story. She didn't want to be the focal point of the story, but that is her story. And unfortunately, as it happens, she was tremendously sick on this day. And so the location that we were going to go to, which was a bit far away from where she was staying, uh, her mom just said, you know what, I just don't feel comfortable with her going that far. Can we do it more locally? And so on that day, I had to go out to find a bombed out building. Um, this actually was the only image that was shot in Kiev. All the other ones were in different parts, but this is the only one that was shot in Kiev because she was based in Kiev. And I went out to find a building, and then I had to find someone that had keys to enter the building because you couldn't just sneak up. And then I actually found the family that used to live in this apartment, and it was a mother with her two daughters who actually gave us a tour of their home before we shot this, saying this used to be our living room. And you could still find, like in their kitchen, they still had their pots and pans. You still had some toys from the girls lying around that had somehow survived the bombing. The smell in this place was just chemically profound. Um, and like just yeah, chemically profound. And it was just about, okay, we were supposed to do this in a very different setup. It was going to be outdoors, it was going to be with grass and with different things, and it was about just changing gears. Okay, can we shoot in this building? This was on the eighth floor of this building. There's still people that were living in this building because the way that this had happened, it was just kind of apartments in the center that had been hit. And I was a little nervous, being like, is this still sound? But I mean, people were still living there. But it's weird, right? Because suddenly you have a tour with these little girls of their flat. This was our flat. We were living here like a few weeks ago, and now, this is what's happened. And it's just jarring and painful, and every day you're confronted with these stories, and yet you're just pulling through to make this happen. And so this one was, as you can see, inspired by Alice in Wonderland, and it's about inviting a skinny cat to come join you. And the skinny cat is the representation in her mind of what war is, because when you have war and suddenly there's not enough food and you're not enough sleep, a skinny cat is kind of the image that came to her mind when she thought of war. And so we actually recycled the pilot child where we were like, we need a skinny cat. We are no longer going to be in the location we're going to be where we had our original skinny cat. Would you like to be a skinny cat? So he came out, and everything was incredibly rushed, just miraculous that we can put anything together. But and the Kiev National Ballet, provided most of these costumes. And I brought, the tablecloths from London and some of the pots, and so, and it's just about patchwork and going with the flow. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But there we are. And in the end, she managed to do it. And she had a fever while we were doing this. And we also said, look, if you don't want to do this, don't force yourself. And she was like, no, I just really want to, do it. So, we go ahead. If a child wants to do it, I'm like, okay, we're doing this. Like, I don't know how, but we're gonna make it work. Um, so yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, putting all of these together was no easy feat. And not just from a logistical perspective, but from an emotional, psychological perspective. Because you're in these locations, and you got people coming up asking you what you're doing and telling you their stories about, the child that they had in that building, behind, that actually they lost because of this, or, and you're bombarded in a way with emotion. And this particular story was of this young girl whose friend Amira has been missing since the start of the war. And so she said, I want to go to the edge of the earth where nobody has ever been, which is colorful and it's got unicorns and ice cream and everything is bright and there's flowers. And that's where I'll find my friend Amira, right? And obviously, with the art therapist, like we had to have several conversations of being like, okay, I cannot make that happen. But we can, we can put a sign for Amira, which is what we ended up going for. And they wanted the sign to be in English because they wanted, because I had made it in Ukraine and they said we want it in Ukrainian and they're like, we want it in English. Okay.
And what is the role of the art therapist through this whole process?
Yeah, as I've done more of these kinds of projects, which I started doing with adults who had suffered different kinds of sexual violence, even in that project, I had therapists sometimes come to the shoots with specific people. Um, but when I started working with children, I just thought, these traumas are profound. Like it's about loss, it's about grief, it's about instability and fear, and all the things are, out of your control. And I just wanted to safeguard and I just wanted to make sure that when we are creating an image, and even though, I've gone through a lot of art therapy myself, I think I've read a lot about psychology. I'm very fascinated by it, but I'm not a therapist per se. I wanted to make sure that somebody was there to ensure that, the image that we're creating. I'll give you an example. This image here, when we were going to make it in the grass, right? Um, I can't remember exactly how I had drawn it, but the art therapist said, oh, I remember how I had drawn it. I've drawn the grass to be just around the table, right, where they're sitting. And she said, do you mind if the grass extends all the way to the right of the image? And I said, sure, why? And she said, because when you put the grass exclusively around the table, it's like this island of greenery, this island, but you're surrounded by hell, right? Whereas if the grass continues out of frame, it kind of alludes to the fact that there's potential for something better and that it's not everything around you, right? And it's just that kind of little, really deep
Makes sense, right?
kernel. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, right? And it's just having a second voice there that kind of goes, have you thought of this? This could be sensitive, what about that? And also safeguarding the children. Like when we shot this particular image, um, it became very emotional for her because it was, even though she knew, it was that realization that we have built the edge of the earth as you imagined it, or as close as I could get it to, and yet Amira is not showing up. And so there was a moment where she cried, where she was like, she's not here, kind of thing. And so it's about having a parent, having people, professionals that know exactly, because I can have a lot of empathy, but they might have something
Say,
better. They'll have something, and just wanting to make sure that when you're doing this kind of work, you're not going to leave a child more hindered than they were before. You actually
right.
want to help them shift in their healing journey. And that's where the art therapist is important, is to make sure that this is a productive, like a constructive, constructive creation that is actually going to be positive as opposed to damaging, right? And it's just making sure of that, particularly with children. I don't think you need it with every child. I don't think you need it with every adult. It depends on the topic, but in this particular instance, yeah, I think it was pretty necessary.
Great.
So yeah, I think this was the end
That
of
was it? Yeah.
my presentation of what I wanted to share with
No,
you.
that's absolutely great. So I have to, my one last question for you is, what is your value to doing this? Like, have you been able to take a step back and say, like give yourself, the final statement of, the value of what you're doing and feeling proud about it? Or is it ongoing? Like what is it that you feel like you're achieving, that you're achieving because you're getting it from the parents, the kids, the therapist, everybody's coming towards you. There's a value to that.
I think with this particular project, as I found out with previous projects, a lot of the answer to that comes in retrospect. Like a lot
Mm,
of the answer of what you've achieved or what you've done comes in retrospect. But with this particular project, I think for me, it was about moving from being purely, and I don't want to undermine, I say purely like it's bad, but purely a journalist in which I was simply observing and documenting to
Mm,
actually having a stance and actually feeling like I want to contribute to change. And so that's what kind of funneled me into a direction of like, I don't just want to document what's happening. I want to do something that can actually help, even if it's a tiny bit. And
mm.
I think the objective with this is precisely to do this. It's not photography as witness, it's photography as promise. It's documenting
Mm.
hopes. It's what, it's not about staying in the brokenness. It's how can you reimagine that brokenness? Like hope isn't broken. It's hope is not that fragile. Like hope is it's a fierce thing, right? In people, and
Yeah,
it's
hope
about
is intense.
remembering that is there. And I also think that, it's a bit of laying down a blueprint for a state of peace eventually in my mind. Like I know that that seems impossible to say with all the madness that we've got in the world, but the
Yeah.
future is not rubble. The future is not always going to be war, right? And I think by presenting that and viewing it through the eyes of children, it gives me hope. I hope it gives others hope. And I hope it also confronts us with what we're putting them through. And I think collectively, we all have a responsibility to do something, even if it's little, even if it's just saying, I am against this. I don't want war to happen, even if it's as basic as that. But like, if we all actually woke up one morning and decided we are going to do something little to fix the problem, we'd be in a much better place. So I think it's like a spider web of things that it does for
Mm.
me. And I feel better coming out and doing something like this than simply documenting people's worst pain and trauma and leaving it at that. So it just
Yeah.
works better for me, I think.
Yeah, no, and there is a perfect answer to the question, right? I mean that's the value. I mean that's absolutely perfect. I can't thank you enough for doing this, with the time change and being a new mom yourself, and doing all this work as a new mom is really spectacular. So, we all salute you and thanks. And as you know, you have an ongoing invitation to come back and show us more and from all the parts of the world that you're doing this. And thank you.
Oh, thanks, Frank. Thanks for having me again.
And we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Yeah, sending you a big hug.
Yes, coming your way.
All right.
Thanks,
Take
dear.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, 1:06. I mean, re-listening, listening to that again was just terrific. She was just great.
Unbelievable.
Really a wonderful a wonderful idea, wonderful concept, just doing something good and thinking about those poor kids. It's
Frank?
really
Frank,
yes.
she's so gifted in so many ways, not uh, only as a photojournalist, and I don't mean that as she said to put it down, but also in the way she presents her photographs, her language, her choice of description. I could listen to her all day
Yes. No, you hit it
and
right on
say,
the head,
why
Mary.
wouldn't I think of saying that, what she did? I mean, one of the best presenters I've heard as far as describing her work. Amazing, totally amazing.
Yeah, really, really, really wonderful.
Frank, did she say before? Because I had to jump out and then come back, jump into the Zoom. Um, did she say her time, that how much time does she make in each production? And I call it a production because I guess that's what it is, like within Ukraine or everywhere
It,
else.
it seems like it's like 2 or 3 weeks for each one, and
Okay.
she tries to do two at a time. Obviously, like one location can give you two views if you turn to
Mm-hmm.
the left or the right. Um,
Maximize her time.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. So it's a lot of back and forth, and you can imagine coordinating with families and props and building things and on and on and on. It's just really an incredible challenge. Yeah, yeah,
Amazing. It's amazing.
yeah. Like I said, I recorded with her early this week, and as we were going through it, I think I feel like everyone else feels now, like, wow, what a great idea. Like that's always the thing. So many people have great ideas, especially photographers, in our universe. And for whatever reason, you can't get it done. There's a hundred reasons. I mean, her baby is it can't the baby can't be 6 months, 6 or 9 months old, and she's doing this, and she's a determined young woman to make it happen. And yeah, and she can feel, and that's what I was trying to get from her. She can feel the reward that it's good. In the most simplest way, it's good, it's positive, and she's going to continue. And she's thoughtful, right? And worrying, like collaborating with an art therapist. What a good idea to make sure that we're doing it right. Like that garden piece, like where she said, have it bleed off. Who would think of that? Who would really, and how important that it is in the most subtle way that the art therapist, leads you to say, wait a second, do this. This is even better, right? And having, the wherewithal to let somebody direct you instead of owning it.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be my way, because there's a lot of people who, in whatever industry, no, it's going to be this way. But to say, you know what, I understand what you're saying.
There's no ego. There's a lot of
Right.
empathy and sensitivity.
Very generous person.
Yes.
Yeah, in really in every way. I mean, and she's a friend that we've had. Sylvie and I have met her, numbers of years ago in Dubai, and we just, as you can imagine, you just fall in love with somebody like that, and she just so engaging, and it was really nice to have some, like she said, or like I think Mary just said, having somebody like that to present, because there is so much war and there is so much of the devastation, and that we get from the photojournalists. It's like a little bit of a segue to the other side.
Yeah.
The
And
first time I smiled in any of your presentations.
Right.
yeah,
I mean,
and,
every picture, I just lit up.
Yeah.
It was just incredible.
yeah, and the same thing with Neil, like what Neil is doing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and like so many of the volunteers who are just doing this other important work, that we need to see, just as viewers, but these folks are doing it on the ground and really doing special work. So,
I
uh,
can't wait, Frank, it's Anya. Sorry, I can't wait to share this with my cousin. She's well, it's actually my cousin's daughter. She's 22 years old, and she herself is an art major, etc. But what she's been doing for the last 9 months is they have these mobile art units that travel to different villages
in
to do
Ukraine,
art therapy for the kids. Right.
in
So this is
Ukraine.
such an interesting concept. I mean, they don't do anything like this, right? They're really just using art as a way for kids to express their feelings, but the kids are like, whether it's drawing pictures or they're doing other kinds of crafts, but they repurpose the school bus and they drive around doing this. But I think doing something like this would be incredible. Not
Yeah.
that I'm looking to plagiarize her ideas. I'm just saying just the
Oh,
concept of imagining
in
where
Ukraine, Anya, you're talking about in Ukraine.
in Ukraine,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, but that's sort of like what Neil was saying, what she was saying. Just do little things. It doesn't have to be this. It. If you got something out of this that you can convey to her, you could do this or you could do that. I mean, that's a win. Think about, like, I mean, that's a great idea. Think about using the theater in any of these cities that have the props, and it could just be something very, very simple.
Right.
Really, really simple with it. It's just a hat.
Right.
That's for that little kid, that's going to be everything. Like, wow, how did you get the top hat from a circus? Right? I mean, that's you know a big stinking smile. Like that girl, you could tell. I mean, I mean, I saw that sort of smirk in her face. Like, look what I got everyone to do. Like there was like a little bit of devilish in her face. I really, really related to that little
Good
tweak.
for her.
Yeah.
Not surprising you would relate to that, Frank. I'm amazed that she brought the pots. I can't believe she brought pots. Like that's just
From London. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just
I can't imagine her getting on a plane with how many suitcases and things those flowers were so big. How did she transfer the flowers?
Yeah. No, the whole thing is just
It's
yeah.
amazing.
how to do it, and then because like especially with photojournalists or photographers in general, a large part of this is alone. You're doing you're thinking alone, and to have that moral and spiritual stamina to these pots are going to be great, or this
Yeah.
door is going to be
That's
great.
exactly. How did she know those pots are going to be so critical? It's crazy.
Right. I mean, like how that comes up, and I'm going to be an inconvenience to the person next to me on that plane. Everything about that, and I don't give a shit. I'm doing it, because I know that kid is going to light up like a Christmas tree. I mean, that smirk on that kid's face, God, do I love that. I really, because you could really see it, how like, wow, look at these jerks. I got these guys. I got my mom and this soldier in pink outfits. I mean, that's so funny. Yeah, I mean, she won't forget. That's another. You always forget the question to ask. Like, does Elisa? And I'm sure I know the answer is, but I didn't ask the question. Does everyone get a print?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I would
Oh, I'm
imagine so.
sure.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would think so. I'll get back to her to just to put an exclamation on that question. But yeah, she was great, and yeah, it's funny how the colors lift you up just by the colors. Right? I mean, the dread and that's that's really the genius of doing it in these war-torn areas. It just it puts that in the background, and it's about that color, and it's about those kids, and how nice of that one girl missing her friend,
Yeah.
Yeah.
putting a sign up. It's yeah, the pain that those kids are going through, and yeah, all over the world the kids are going through pain. Right. I mean, yeah, and that's the other issue.
India too?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, all over the world. I mean, she could make this her life's work,
Yes.
unfortunately. Right. She really can do that. Yeah, that'd be a great show at the UN too. Yeah. Um, so
Make
that's
that
what we,
happen.
yeah, that's what we have for week 16. So and it's great. There's a few people that are new here, so it's great
Rank
to see.
17.
Yeah, 17. Jay corrected me. This is week 17. Um, yeah, Justin's a new Justin, and I think are new folks. So that was terrific to see them in. And all these will be on our YouTube channel. And they'll be probably on Monday or Tuesday. We'll send out an email with all the links to all the shows of this week, and it'll be infiltrated into our playlist of I think we're now over 70 presentations. So but yeah, this was great this week, and Elisa really just ended it perfectly.
Yes.
She did.
She really, really didn't. And you know what I did? I put in the chat room her email address. So if you want to, you scroll down a little bit, you can get her email. And I know she would love to get, any email, just a thank you, a great show, anything. That would be great for her. That would be another, that's the other thing, working alone. These photographers are always looking for a small shot of adrenaline, and that's what that would be. Just a little note from any of us. Great show, something would be really good. So if you have the wherewithal to do that, that's
That I could do.
Yes.
Yep.
So can I.
yeah. I just put it on the bottom now, so it's the last one
I
too.
found it. I found it. I
Okay.
scrolled up and found
All right, Sandy, you want to end? Well, no, I guess Anya did not get the haircut because she's
it. And she's hiding.
yeah, she's
Actually, I think,
hiding.
Frank, you did this on purpose because it says you cannot start your video because it's disabled by the host. So I think you've had enough looking at me that you just didn't even let me try to show it.
Well,
Okay, you can turn it on now.
yeah,
No,
there you
that's okay.
go.
Never mind. The moment's
Thank you,
gone.
thank you. And also Sandy now has your phone number. Aline, I can't tell you how much I love that you came in all 3 nights, so we really do appreciate that.
Oh, it's great. It's been wonderful.
Great. Yeah, we love
You know,
that.
there was a psychiatrist after 9/11 who started doing art therapy with kids in New York City, but he just did drawings, you know, and
Okay.
I don't know if he published a book afterwards or not, but you know, you have to do something for the
You know
kids.
the name of the psychiatrist?
I'll try to remember. Yeah, that was a long time ago, Sandy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
worked in a psychiatric hospital for 40 years. That's why I asked.
That explains it.
What were you
Sorry,
saying?
Sandy. That was a soft. That was a curve
Oh
that
my
did not
God,
break.
how
That
stupid
came
am
in
I?
flat. That came in flat. It didn't break. And you know, all my friends on this channel would have said, "Boy, Frank must be tired or something." He didn't hit that out. So I apologize as I say it, Sandy.
Sandy,
But
what did you do?
I
yes.
did administrative work. I'm not a professional,
Okay.
but you become a professional after 40 years, I'll tell you.
I'm sure.
I give a lot of free therapy to my friends.
Don't downplay the role, Sandy. You're a professional.
Yes, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
Oh,
Well, everybody, and Jay, make sure you when you put it on YouTube, all of this stays in. That all of this kibitzing in the end there. I don't know if Sandy minds about that other little joke, but nevertheless, and it's in. It's part of the record.
It's fine.
Yes.
The truth is,
So
I didn't even hear it because I was laughing. So
okay,
I don't know what you said.
good.
I'll have to
Good.
watch the video.
That's it. Good.
Frank, it's David Fassler.
Oh, I don't know him.
Dr. David, no, he was in Burlington, Vermont, actually.
Oh, I definitely don't know him.
Okay. So with that, thanks everyone for coming in. We'll be doing it again. We've got some really big artists coming. Amy Vitalia, who's doing a lot of work with Panda Bear. She's coming. And I mean, I shouldn't give it up because it's not locked in, but we may have Julian Lennon presenting.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
So that may be happening. We have Howard Greenberg, who's
Frank, I need to let my hairdresser know when that might be. Could you let me?
I will. Yeah, there's who else?
Talking about that, did everybody see the Billy Joel special that was on?
No.
No.
Oh, look at HBO. It's two separate episodes. He tells
Okay.
his whole life from the very beginning, everything he went through. It was amazing.
Okay.
Absolutely amazing. And his music, I mean, was
That's
throughout
great,
the whole
Sandy.
show.
Plug another show. I really appreciate that. That's
You're not on every night, Frank. I mean,
okay.
and it's a
So
special, not a show.
I love you guys a lot. Thanks very, very much for
And we
everything.
love you,
We
Frank.
love
Thank
you
you
too,
again.
Frank.
Bye, Frank.
And we'll see you down the road.